All right, so we kick off the SportsMax zone on this Friday with Jamaican football. The Jamaican Premier League preliminary round ends on Sunday with match week 26. Here are the fixtures entering the final match week. Falkland, they play Chapelton, Arnett Gardens up against Tivoli, Don Beholden face Mount Pleasant, Harbour View, Seavare United, Malines play Portmore, Montego Bay versus Cavalier, and Waterhouse up against Humble Lion. The table looks like this ahead of match week 26. Arnett Gardens sitting pretty in first position on a total of 52 points. So leaders Arnett Gardens, they have 52 points. They've already qualified for the semi-finals and need just a point to confirm themselves champions of the regular season. Cavalier on 49 points. They need a point to confirm a semi-final berth. Mount Pleasant are secured of a playoff spot, but we'll be hoping a win plus a Cavalier loss propel them in the second automatic semi-final spot. Harbourview, like Mount Pleasant, are sure of a playoff spot and will enter the final match week with only mathematical permutations on their side, and it will be on their mind. Humble Lion on 41 points are all but secure of a playoff spot and need only to not suffer a defeat of 4 goals or more against Waterhouse in their final match to guarantee their progression to the knockout round. Don Beholden are on 38 points. They have their destiny in their own hands. Waterhouse, also on 38 points, have an outside shot of top 6. So does Portmore on 37 points in 8th. At the bottom of the table, we have Falkland and Chapelton Maroons. They are relegated. Well, joining us as per usual to preview these pivotal games is our in-house football analyst, Leger Williams. Leger, some big games this weekend, this match week, let me say, because they continue on Monday.
No, all the games are on Sunday this week.
Okay.
But yeah, they want to keep them all at the same time to avoid anything.
So big weekend?
Yeah, big weekend. Games all around. They're spread out all across the island. And basically all of the top 8, as you said a while ago, have something to play for. Arnett, even though they're through, they'll want to get the preliminary prize, which is to top the table. Cavalier want to get into the top 2 so they can save their squad after losing such big pieces of it. I think Harbourview, out of the top 8, are probably the only team that don't have too much to play for. They can't drop out of the top 6. They can't get into the top 2 either. But apart from that, and especially the top 6 race, it's going to be a crazy one.
All right, so we're going to do some deep analysis, and of course we're going to cue in with your favorite, Arnett. Of course, they are flying high after that 3-0 win they're coming off, and they face Tivoli. Do you see them, of course, going into that match with the same momentum and defeating Tivoli, or do we see an upset? What are you thinking? You call yourself the prediction guru on the show live, so go ahead.
That's going to be a comfortable win for Arnett Gardens, I think. They comfortably dispatch of Tivoli earlier in the season. They've been in excellent form. They have clean sheets all over the shop, goal scoring. They're even resting their squad and still looking extremely comfortable. I'm sure they'll want momentum going into the playoffs, so I don't think they'll be taking off the gas pedal too much, and I think they'll comfortably beat Tivoli Gardens this Sunday.
Last game, Rashiki Kelson, man of the match. We spoke about him. Do you expect him to continue on the form that we saw in the last match?
Yeah, as I mentioned, he's not like a sure starter, so I'm sure he'll want to continue his form going into the playoffs so he can assure his playoff spot when the time comes. He'll want to be starting in those pivotal games. So I'm sure he'll be looking to, really push forward, give a really good account of himself, and then give the coaches some serious headaches in terms of who they're going to pick on the wings.
Right. I was looking at Tivoli Garden on the table, of course, their rankings. Where did they stumble this season? If we have to give an overall assessment of what we saw from Tivoli, where did they lose this one?
It's definitely goal scoring. Yes, they weren't necessarily keeping the best clean sheets. They weren't the best defensively. But in terms of their goal scoring, they were really poor all throughout the season. Their coach, Teddy Johnson, he spoke about this almost every game. They were chopping and changing almost every game in terms of who they were starting up front, changing formations, changing systems, changing play styles. They were trying everything. But unfortunately, it couldn't work out for them. So, that's just it for them. Tivoli, that's their season. They're out of the link up as well. But they're a very prideful team, so they'll be looking to get the better of Arnett Gardens in this West Kingston derby. I just don't see it happening.
Don Beholden and, of course, Mount Pleasant, a team that Theodore Whitmore is in charge of, that started the season really well, but they've kind of faltered. Even in the last 5 matches, I think 2 draws and a couple of losses. You know, in this matchup, you know, do they find themselves back again, the Dunbeholden from the Mount Pleasant from early in the season as compared to now as the season comes to a close?
They'll be looking to, because they have a lot to play for as well. They'll want to get into the top 2. Of course, they'll be having to hope that Cavalier drop points to Veer, but Mount Pleasant are a really good team. They have a lot of really good individual players as well. A couple of weeks ago, they dropped an outstanding 7 on Chapelton, and as we went on to find out the following week, when Dunbeholden did it as well, Chapelton aren't really the best measuring stick in terms of quality in the league. But I think Mount Pleasant, they have some good coaches on their roster as well. They have really good players. As I said, they have a lot to play for. But in terms of Dunbeholden and Mount Pleasant, I think that's the game with the most story capacity in this week. Of course, Mount Pleasant took so many of their players, three of their key players from that team that went to the final, being Dunbeholden last year, including their captain in Dyer. They took some of their coaching staff as well. So Mount Pleasant have a lot of what you would call a Dunbeholden influence. So Dunbeholden want to be getting their own back, condemning Mount Pleasant to, you know, the quarterfinal instead of the semi-final automatically.
But Dunbeholden coming in with, as a form team, they won 4 of the last 5 games coming into this game. Is that confidence a major factor in this matchup?
Confidence will be a major factor, but there's something key to point out as well. The fact that Dunbeholden will be without their best player, one of the best players in the competition itself, in Nicoy Christian, who got sent off in their 7-1 win over the weekend. So that will be a big blow in terms of how they look to create chances, because there's no approximation of him in their squad. All of the players who play in that position are really young players, so those young players will have to really come to the fore against a Mount Pleasant team that's really experienced. As I mentioned, they have a lot of good players as well. So it's going to be a difficult game for both teams. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that one ends in a draw.
Oh, so you're going for a draw. I was about to ask you, as soon as you said that, who has the edge, but you're saying a draw.
I said I would not be surprised if it was a draw.
Okay, but you like to call yourself the prediction guru, and if it's one thing on this show, I don't forget.
Yeah.
So predict, draw, win.
I think Mount Pleasant will get the win in this one. They'll want to go into the playoffs with a good form.
Yeah, we have another mouth-watering fixture, Portmore. They're in 8th position, and they play Malines United. What are we expecting in that match? A lot of goals?
Yeah, definitely. Malines United, they're a team that concede a lot, but they will score as well. Both of these teams played each other in the link-up in the quarter-final stage. Portmore won over the 2 legs. The second game was drawn 2-2. Portmore are the superior team. They showed that in the link-up. They showed that in the league as well. But they've been drawing a lot of games as of late. Portmore have the edge. I think they will win this game, but will it be enough to get into the playoffs? Bold prediction again, because a couple weeks I said that Portmore are going to get into the playoffs, and although they've been trying their hardest not to do so by starting first half the way that they have been and then getting into their own in the second half, I'm going to stick with my bold prediction. I'm going to be wrong and strong if it comes down to that, and I'm going to say that Portmore will somehow sneak their way into that 6th position, because Dunbeholden will not beat Mount Pleasant, and Waterhouse playing Humberland in the other game to decide the 6th spot. I think that Humberland will draw with Waterhouse, leading the way for Portmore United to sneak into that 6th position. That's my official prediction for this weekend.
Prediction guru.
Wow. Don't worry, he has a song and everything. You just missed that. Where are the goals coming from for Portmore?
Portmore? That's a good question. Alex Marshall, he can never write him off. He can also never write off Walsh, who's been scoring a lot. Yeah, I think they'll go for the usual suspects who get the goals for them. That the prediction mind doesn't go that deep to tell you exactly where the goals will come from. I'm a results type of guy, but yeah, I'll give my prediction in terms of that as well.
What about 7th place Waterhouse? They play 4th place Humber Lion. Based on the rankings, are we saying a win for Humber Lion?
No, I think that one will be a draw. I think Waterhouse, it's sticky with them. They play such good football at times, but they can't get the goals. They have a pretty good defensive record, but in terms of defensive record, that's Humber Lion. Humber Lion have the best defensive record in the league. So it's going to be, I think, defense versus defense. It's really hard to break down Humber Lion, as Mount Pleasant proved last week in terms of scoring 7 and then going to Humber Lion and drawing 1-1. Humber Lion have a goal in them in almost every game as well. So I can almost positively say I think that one's going to end 1-1. Unless Waterhouse pull one of their best performances out of their hat and prove me wrong in terms of who's going to get that 6th position. But as I said, those are like 4 games that can directly impact what's going to happen in this season.
I have one question to ask you, just for a second. How about your defending champions? Are you surprised that they're not further up in the table this season, given how well they played last year? I mean, they didn't get off to the best start this season, but are you surprised that they didn't end up higher in the rankings? So, I mean, as the season winds down.
No, not necessarily, because their coach, he's a man who likes to prep his team to win at the right time. We saw last season they scraped by getting into 6th place, they won the title. He always speaks about prepping his players in terms of when they're supposed to get into the right shape. He's been prepping Krista J. Daly, someone who can really propel them into getting into those tight games. He can provide some quality to get them over the line. They have a really good squad all across the board. So Harborview, I'm not surprised they are where they are, but that won't bother them one bit, I think, because I still think that they'll be confident going into the playoffs, and I feel like they think that they can win the championship again, and why shouldn't they think so?
Right, Leger, working this weekend?
Yeah, I'm on Sunday.
All right, well, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the SportsMax Zone. And of course, viewers, if you want to hear more from him, the JPL, it lives also on your home of champions. We're taking a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stay with SportsMax on YouTube and follow us on all social pages for updates, news and entertainment.